Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. Due to YouTube's changing quote-unquote community standards, I created a channel called Grumpy Old Fart over on Rumble, a free speech alternative to YouTube. You can see all of my stuff over there, including my political and social commentary, as well as my current events videos. The links to my YouTube and Rumble channels, as well as links to let you order my books, are in the description of this video. If you enjoy my content, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. I welcome your comments, even if you disagree with me. Now, on with the video. Hey there, Grumpy Old Fart here. I'm doing a historic haunting video on Carl Pruitt. I didn't know anything about this story until I read an article the other day. And then I found a video online that had a lot of good information. And I did some research in some other places. And I found a lot of good information on this. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. It is rare that you ever hear of a ghost or any kind of non-demonic entity that actually physically hurts people. Demonic activity, yeah. And there are some non-human entities that are not demonic and they sometimes hurt people. But this is just a ghost. A damaged soul, so to speak. and then this is the case of Carl Pruitt. That he's the damaged soul. Carl Pruitt worked as a carpenter in a small town in rural Kentucky. And again, I'm piecing this together from several articles. The towns were all different, so the information is the same, but it's just the names are different, which happens sometimes in folklore. But the information again is all the same. He worked as a carpenter in a small town in rural Kentucky. In June of 1938, Pruitt returned home to discover his wife with another man. The other man fled, and in a fit of rage, Carl strangled his wife to death with a length of chain. Then, out of guilt and remorse, Carl Pruitt committed suicide. So it's a tragic end all the way around. His wife's family would not allow him to be buried next to his wife, who was the love of his life. Instead, he was buried in a cemetery in a nearby town. He was buried alone and in disgrace. That's just a sad ending. It's crazy. This guy by all accounts, he was a good man. He worked as a carpenter. I couldn't find anything about him being, a real son of a bitch or whatever. By all accounts, he was a good guy. But stuff happens, and he ended up being buried alone and in disgrace in another town. That would be, I'm sorry, that would be a slap in the face to me. But one day, a visitor to the cemetery noticed peculiar circular shadows on the surface of Carl's gravestone. They looked eerily like a chain. Then the unexplained deaths began. Shortly thereafter, a child named James Collins mischievously threw rocks at the tombstone. Then on the way home, you're gonna love this. He fell off of his bicycle and somehow was strangled to death by the bike's chain. Now, I've caught my leg in a chain. The chain has caught my pants leg or whatever and pulled it back. I've got my toe caught in a chain one time. It was very, very painful. I don't know how you could get your neck caught in the chain. To me, that right there tells you there's something to this story. That's all I'm saying. James's mother, and the kid died, from this. James's mother, in a fit of anger over her dead son, took an axe and destroyed the gravestone. Later, she was found at home. She had somehow become tangled in her clothesline and strangled to death. Still can't explain that, A few days later, the gravestone was back over Carl's grave, fully intact despite having been destroyed by Mrs. Collins. Several years later, a farmer fired several pistol rounds at the gravestone. He was later found strangled by the reins of his horse. Excuse me, let me read that one again. Sorry, I can't read my own writing. He was later found strangled by the reins of his own horse-drawn carriage. Yeah, so he's driving his horse and carriage, and he somehow gets strangled by the reins. Yeah. Similar deaths occurred every few years or so, culminating in the fatality of a local policeman. This cop had hurled insulting jokes and remarks at the gravestone about the ghost and the curse. Then he took photographs of the gravesite. On the drive home from the cemetery, he crashed his car into a fence. One of the links of chain from the fence decapitated him. Yeah. Well, in the 1950s, the cemetery and bodies were moved. I believe a strip mining company came in, and the ghostly killings stopped. One or two such deaths with direct links to Pruitt's grave might be considered a coincidence, but the deaths continued for 2 decades. That's a bit much for anyone to swallow. I could not find where Carl Pruitt's remains were laid to rest, but wherever they ended up, I guess he was satisfied because, like I said, the murder stopped, the death stopped. I'm sure we all pray that he rests in peace to keep that stuff from happening again. That's the first time I ever had a vengeful ghost go after somebody in one of my, at least that I'm aware of. That story was just too crazy not to relate. Hope you enjoyed it. You folks have a good day now. God bless one and all. We elect cookie-cutter politicians every single election cycle. Yes men who maintain the status quo and do just enough to make us believe the system still works. Imagine, if you will, a president who actually tries to fix things. If you like action, political intrigue, and a righteous crusade, check out my political thriller, The Righteous President.